Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. You can probably hear my fur baby in the background making noise, but I am Tiffany Joy Murchison. I am based out of Brooklyn, New York. I am a native New Yorker, born and raised in the wonderful state of New York here in the U.S. I am a public relations professional. I am a leadership development and executive presence coach. I'm a stylist. And I am the daughter of one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, my mom, Sharon Louise Bell, and my father, Joseph L. Murchison, who was one of the first African-American paratroopers allowed to jump in the U.S. Army, the 555 Paratroopers Infantry, 82nd Airborne Division. So I'm a proud daughter of an Army vet who is no longer with us, but still guiding me every day. I'm here to talk about being authentic and finding what I call your however moment. And I believe my however moment came many years ago. I was the type of person who took on everybody else's situations. I say that my life started as a dichotomy, too good for one side of my family and not good enough for the other. My mother and father came from very different worlds. My father from the South, a family that had a lot of prestige in their small town. My mother was a New York City girl by way of Louisiana, New Orleans, Creole heritage, basically taught to be a housewife and a mom. And my dad wanted all his daughters, I'm one of 11 children of my father's, wanted his daughters to pursue big dreams. And so not quite good enough for one side of the family. My parents were 20 years apart, and too good for the other side. And I found myself spending a lot of time trying to prove that I didn't think I was better than, or that I was good enough on this side. And I would take on all sorts of things that really did not belong to me. And one day, one of my favorite aunts and I were having a conversation, and I said to her, you know, the Lord never gives you anything you can't bear. And she stopped me and she said, well, did God give you that? Or did you take all of those things on all by yourself? And it made me think about it. And I said, well, you know, that's a good question. I assumed God gave me all these tasks. And she said, well, go ask him and come back and let me know what he says. And in prayer and devotion, I found like I got my answer, feel like I got my answer. And about a week or so later, she asked again, did you ask God if he gave you all those things to do, if you're supposed to try to be all these things to all these people? And my response to her was, I did ask. And it felt like God said, fool, I didn't tell you to do all those things. That's not who and what I created you to be. I have other things for you to do. And at that time, in my, say, late 20s, early 30s, is when I started to shed a lot of the titles other people had given me, a lot of the characteristics other people had given me, a lot of the assignments that were given to me by humans, not by God. And I began to develop my own authenticity and find out who Tiffany Joy really is, who I was then and who I was evolving to be. And so I am a mom. I have two children, a son and a daughter. I do have a fur baby, and I'm a business owner and an entrepreneur. I spent 25-ish years in corporate America before I realized that God did not intend for me to stay there and retire. I tell people God kicked me out of corporate America 3 times before I would listen. But this entrepreneurship journey has allowed me to meet some amazing people, some amazing women that look like me. I truly have found my tribe as I've traveled along this journey. And one of the things that I see as I just talk with my friends and coach other women is that we need to find what I call our however moment, which is what I found when my aunt asked me, what did God give me to do? Yeah, maybe my parents are 20 years apart and from two different worlds, and my father's family wasn't quite happy that I came along. However, God created me and said that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Maybe I did not go the traditional route to college like some of my siblings did, and I worked first and got my degree in my early 30s. However, I bought my first home at 27 years old, all by myself. I had a great job. I made a great income. I was able to raise my family and provide and never have to be dependent on anyone else. And I started to look at how my life shaped out versus others, but I was okay. I didn't follow traditions, but I was still okay. And one of my favorite hip hop artists, Biggie Smalls, has a song where he talks about his not so good attributes. And then he makes this bold statement and says, however, and he goes on to talk about all the things that are great about him, the money he has, the watch he wears, the clothes he wears. And I started to think about that as a concept. Women tend to focus on our own flaws or weaknesses. Are we too heavy? Are we too skinny? Are we too short? Are we too tall? Are we smart enough? Do we have enough degrees? In motherhood, we're worried about whether or not we're the best soccer mom. Are we spending enough time with the kids? The mother across the street works from home or is a stay-at-home mom, but we go out to work. We're always looking at what we don't have or where we may be lacking. That is a trick of the enemy, in my opinion, to show you what you don't have. It's a distraction. And I really started to flip that around and look at, okay, maybe I didn't do the traditional route. However, my life is great. So I really want to help women, the women that I coach, the women who I love on and who love on me, make sure that we focus on our however, as opposed to focusing on our weaknesses. We just need to manage them. And if we want to adjust, adjust, but really focus on the things about us that are phenomenal, amazing, terrific, fantastic, our gifts, the things that God gives us to do, our assignments. And I'm really honing in on that as I approach my 50th birthday in a couple of months and really looking at what God is putting in front of me to do versus what I may be tempted to pick up in a moment of having imposter syndrome or a moment of feeling like I'm a little bit less than or some sort of insecurity. I've worked really hard to feel good in my own skin and be comfortable in my own skin. And I want to help other women do that in grace and unapologetically and in authenticity find their however moment. And I'm really, really pleased to be able to share that with you all as we go through this podcast today. So I am Tiffany Joy Murchison, and I'm here to help you find your however.
Absolutely wonderful, Tiffany. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I love, love, love the way that you said God kicked you out of corporate America 3 times. Now, what did those exits teach you about resilience and purpose?
Initially, I said, getting laid off, especially 3 times in a maybe 6-year span, is a gift and a curse because you develop a kind of a numbness. Like there wasn't too much that could rattle me after that, right? 3 times in a row, I had made it through the first 2 times unscathed. It was a little bit difficult, but I had made it through. And it gave me an attitude of I didn't have to put up with anybody else. I didn't have to deal with things that I didn't want to deal with. My pastor here in Brooklyn, Christian Cultural Center, A.R. Bernard, says, never sit down to a deal that you can't walk away from. And until I had been laid off 3 times, I didn't understand that. And now I don't have a fear of not being able to feed myself or, not being able to provide, because I'm going to find a way. God will always help me to find a way. And so it's you get a little bit of arrogance there. I had to learn how to temper it, but it taught me that I am resilient and that I'm strong, and that I wasn't going to let any one person or one company decide whether I could pay my bills, whether I could, feed my family, whether I could just live a life. That was all up to me.
So it sounds to me like you found your own self-worth, and that defined everything else you were going to be doing going forwards in your life. But
Absolutely.
what I'm curious about is, what was the moment when you knew that PR was no longer just a job, but your calling?
Right from the beginning. So when I decided, my sisters and I and nieces, the adults, women in my family would take a trip every year prior to the pandemic. And this was maybe our first time we were getting together to do this. And I had been laid off for the 3rd time. And I sat in the hotel room and I made this grand announcement. I said, I'm not going to have a job in 30 days. And I don't think I'm going back to work. And one of my older sisters, who is the consummate professional, looked at me, and I was cringing for what her response was going to be. And she said, well, if there's anybody who can pull that off, it's you. And if you need our support, we're here. And my first thought was, okay, who are you and what did you do with my sister? Because that was definitely not the answer that I expected. And so I immediately said, okay, what is my passion? PR, communications, relationship building. It was something that every role I had had in every Fortune 100 company that I had worked at had a comms part, a communications part, a relationship management part. And I said, well, that's it. I love journalism. I had done a stint at a magazine and a few other things. And I said, okay, it'll be PR. I grew up in New York City in the 80s and 90s. I knew producers and artists. And so for me, I said, oh, entertainment, that's a no-brainer. However, I was in church one Sunday and I ran into a young lady. I was actually ushering in church. And I ran into a young lady. She had come to service late and she was just a little frazzled and wanting to find a seat. And I was able to just kind of talk to her and calm her down. And afterwards, when service was over, she came back to me and we started having a conversation. And a few weeks in, she mentioned to me that her nonprofit organization was approaching its 5th anniversary and that their PR person was checking out on them. And I immediately said, I'm starting a PR agency. I can do your PR. I'll do it pro bono, right? At the time, I was pursuing a graduate degree, and one of my professors would always say, don't be afraid to take the job. That's $2. Get your feet wet. Don't be afraid to do the free stuff. So I was going to do the free stuff. And I took on this job pro bono. And on the day of this huge event that they had every year, I said to her, what are your goals for today? What do I need to make sure happens? And she said, well, we do this every year. We have this play that I write. Each year is a continuation from the year before. And I never get to sit down and watch the play from beginning to end. So I never see my own work. And I said, okay. And she said, because there's always something awry, always something I need to manage. And I said, okay. And then she said, and I never eat. Now, this organization was supporting the country of Haiti after the earthquake and combating the cholera outbreak. And so they would have this Haitian market, this IAT marché in the lobby of the theater. And they had all this wonderful food and music and culture. And she never got to experience it because she was always running around trying to do something. And I said to her, you're going to eat today and you're going to watch your own production from beginning to end.
Oh.
And she ate. several plates of food that day. And she watched her own production from beginning to end. And by the end of the day, she was in tears, but tears of joy. And the journalist that I worked with that day said, "You have got to be the easiest publicist we've ever worked with. You're on point." And in that moment, I said, "All right, God, I hear you. It's not entertainment you want me to do. This is the space, nonprofit, purpose-driven campaigns is where you want me to be." And I have never looked back from that moment.
Oh my gosh. And it's interesting because I remember reading a quote in a book that said, your your wealth lies in the things that you are passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're working in your passion, it's not work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This is like you are having fun every single day because
Every
you love
single
what
day.
you do. I
Every
love
single day. Today is the first day of school here in New York City, and we have several schools as clients on our roster. And so I
it.
was hopping from school to school today, watching the kids start their day, checking in on my principals, buying smoothies for kids that I had promised something to a couple weeks ago. And, I always say, I am so honored that God trusts me with his most favorite people in the world to help
Oh,
them find their voice, to help them tell their story, to help
yeah.
them, just kind of have some peace about the work that they do and make sure that their legacy stands. Those principles are shaping our future leaders,
Mm.
especially in black and brown communities. And I am so honored that God trusts me with his favorite people because they have assignments that are so essential to the way that we live, particularly now here in the United States. And so I'm just so honored that he has trusted me to do the work that I do.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Now, your tagline is where PR meets purpose.
Yes.
How do you ensure that every client story creates measurable impact?
I think that starts with the clients that we take on in the beginning anyway, right? So we're very selective. We won't take on anything that is just for the sake of making money. There has to be a direct population of people that are impacted by the work the client does. Thus, we are indirectly impacting that population of people. So that's where we start. The second thing is, in a lot of purpose-driven campaigns and nonprofit organizations don't do this well, and I don't think enough public relations professionals lean in on this. There's two things: one, we're data-driven, and two, we're risk-averse. So because I've worked in corporate and worked in risk management, I come into this space making sure that there isn't anything glaring that could cause a reputation crisis for a client. For example, we took on an organization that serves teen moms and dads. They were our client for about 8 years. But when I first came in, they were feeding these families, and someone from the community was cooking. It was just, oh, somebody's auntie or somebody's grandma was cooking for the 8 weeks that these parents were in these parenting classes. And I said, hold on a second. What if someone has a food allergy? What if someone, gets sick from the food that you are serving in your program? That's a risk, that you can't bear the brunt of. So we ended up finding a way to work with the city to get these, which are now called community cooks, food handlers licenses. They were able to start small catering businesses. Some of them have grown and are still going. And we were
Wow.
able to provide a way for them to get insurance so that for that 8 weeks, if they were providing food and something happened, they were covered, the organization was covered. So that turned that whole program into just another way of impacting generations because now you have the grandmas and the aunties that are cooking for the young parents in their community. It was full circle. So that's one, we're risk averse. The other thing is that we teach our clients how to mine their data because with data, you can tell a story. The first couple of years of your organization being in existence, the heartstrings, pulling at the heartstrings work. So, year one, we're helping teen moms. Year two, we're helping teen dads. By year three, people are starting to ask, well, what's going on with the help, right? So in year 3, 4, 5 of an organization being in existence, folks want to see the tangibility of it. Where's the money going?
Yes.
Where are these people? They were at A, are they at B now? Are they at E now? Are they at Z now? Where's the growth in both the organization and the people that they serve? And so we focus on teaching our clients how to mine their own data so that they can give us numbers and we can tell a story. Well, we've increased literacy in this neighborhood by 15% among teen mothers and fathers, right? We need to be able to tell those stories. And so, again, my corporate background, God wastes nothing. I'm able to help them to understand their data and how to mine that data so we can use it for their benefit.
Oh, wow. That's just incredible. Now, as a Black woman in media, how do you navigate the tension between visibility and authenticity?
That is a challenge for me. I
Mm.
am used to playing the background. I am old school in my communications and PR role where my client should be out front and in the forefront, and I'm head down doing the work. However, in this particular social climate, that doesn't work anymore. You kind of have to be the squeaky wheel to get the oil. And so it's a balancing act for me to put myself out there. I love my team. They make me do it. They push me to be out in the forefront. And then also, lately God has been telling me people need to hear your story. You need to be more out in the front. So you have to find a way to do it so that you're not taking away the shine from your clients. It's always um, disheartening to me when I see a public relations professional with their client on like a red carpet and you see them more than you see the client. That's not our job, right? So it's about carving out spaces where we can talk about the work that we do and how important it
Yeah.
is without stepping on the toes of our clients. So you probably won't see me walking the red carpet at a Grammy or something like that, but you will see me on a podcast or a talk show talking about the benefits of great communication and reputation management.
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, you emphasize that authenticity with grace is the true superpower. Can you share an example of when this transformed a campaign or a client's journey?
I have a saying that we don't do Save the Children commercials. When I was a kid, there were these commercials for an organization, and they would show children in other countries, and the children would just look pitiful, right? They would never show the beauty of the country. They would show these children who looked like they were malnutritious, flies flying around them. And my grandmother would always say, whenever one of those commercials came on, and Sally Struthers was the actress who was, the spokesperson for this organization, my
Yeah.
grandmother would say, that's a shame because every year Sally Struthers gets fatter and fatter and those kids get skinnier and skinnier. That was always her remark, and that always stuck with me. So I've always said to my team and I say to my clients, we don't do Save the Children commercials. We don't present our clients in a pitiful way. We present our clients in a way that says we don't need a handout, we need a hand up. So we need support. And help that we don't need is not help, it's hindrance. So we like to showcase that our children and our clients and the people that they serve, adults, children they serve, are intelligent and smart. They just need opportunity to flourish. And so I that is my thing. We do not do Save the Children commercials. We are not going to show up looking pitiful because we want somebody to give us some money. That's not what we do. We are going to show up as the powerhouses that we are. Our children are going to be articulate. Our clients are going to be well spoken. We're not going to get here and act like we're pitiful. And I think I do that with every client. And we were on a call last week with one of our clients, and I didn't even have to say it. The client said, because we don't do Save the Children commercials. And I was in the background like, yes, they get it, because we do not present our clients in a pitiful way. Yes, they may need help, but they don't need
Yeah.
a hand out. They need a hand up. Reach in and help pull them up. Teach them how to be sufficient. Yes, donate. Yes, give. Yes, support. But there's nothing pitiful about someone who needs help. They just need help. It's not pity. Don't pity them.
Yeah.
Empower them instead. And so we do that with every campaign. We want folks to see who our clients really are. That doesn't mean that we don't know how to read the room, right? So you don't take your whole self everywhere. Even I don't take my whole self everywhere. There's parts of me that are tempered when I'm in a specific room. You got to learn how to read the room. But we
Yeah.
definitely make sure that our clients are showing up in authenticity. And that doesn't mean if you have one vernacular with your friends and a different vernacular in the office, that doesn't make you fake or phony. It means that you know how to read the room.
Yeah.
And it's a strategy. It's not phony, it's strategy.
Wow. That is just amazing. Now, many women hesitate to take up space or tell their story. What advice do you give them to step forward boldly?
I shared this with a client recently and she sent it back to me. So I'm going to put it out in the world today. As women, we need to be what I say equalizers. It can be the same song played in a different theater or a different room, and the equalizer is adjusted based on the acoustics of that room so that the song is just as beautiful in one room as it is in the other. As women, we need to do the same thing. We have treble, which is our snazz, our soft girl era, our pizzazz, and all the girliness about us. And then we have our bass, whom we have to boss up. And as women, all we need to do is learn how to balance that out. What rooms we need to have more bass in, what rooms we need to have more treble in, and where we can be softer or where we need to be more of a boss. That's just equalizing our own sound as we walk into the room. And so, it's not imposter syndrome. It's not fake. It's not phony. It is showing up who you are. That doesn't mean that you get to be a jerk. So that's why I tell people authentically, unapologetically, gracefully, because it doesn't mean you get to be a jerk. It doesn't mean that you get to be unkind. It doesn't mean that you get to be insulting or arrogant, but show up being who God created you to be. He makes no mistakes. We are all fearfully and wonderfully made in our own right. And whatever your talent is, whatever your gift is, He has a purpose for that on this earth. And if He says that you're supposed to do it, who are you to say that you're not?
Wow, I love that. That is so true. And so many women forget that, though.
We do, which
We
is
do.
why I want women to find their however moment. Because we always have I don't care if you're 8 or 80, you're
Mhm.
always going to have some little bit of doubt. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
As you get older, the doubt should shrink. The meltdown should be shorter. Maybe when I was 8, my meltdown was 5 hours. At almost 50, my meltdown should be 5 minutes, maybe 5 seconds in some cases, right? But you
Yeah.
learn how to just manage the emotion, and you show up as the superwoman that you were created to be. Whatever that looks like for you, because it's no cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all.
Different. It's different for everyone. It's just incredible. Wow. So, what role does faith play in the way that you lead your business and you serve your clients?
Faith is everything for me. I truly believe that we're doing God's work the way He would want us to do it.
Mm.
I lead with integrity, first and foremost. I try my very best to be fair to my team as much as I possibly know how to. Just like in raising children, if I do something with my team that I need to apologize for, I do that. Um, I am very, very cognizant of teaching my team how I walk in my faith and not to offend anyone else for whatever their beliefs are. We have found a way to balance my Christian faith with some of the team members and the things that they celebrate, right? So we understand the diversity and the beauty in that. And so you'll see us post for Diwali or Eid, right? As well as Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those wonderful things as well. But faith is what has kept me on this journey for the last 10 years. Without it, because entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. It's
Yeah.
totally not for the faint at heart. And so if I didn't have faith that God was working behind the scenes, that this is what He assigned me to do, I would have quit a long time ago and just went and got another job.
Just give up, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, you say that the world needs what only each of us carries.
Yes.
What is the one thing you feel you personally carry that the world needs the most?
Ooh, that's a good one. The one thing, compassion.
Mm,
Compassion. I have the ability to understand a person's situation and to see stories from multiple angles, to
yeah.
be able to understand what makes people tick, why a person may think this way. And so I can have compassion for, well, yeah, they were wrong. However, I can understand. For me, when you have understanding into why a person's behavior may be that way, you can
Mm,
better manage that. You can adjust your approach based on the understanding, and your approach determines success or failure, but the understanding is what determines the approach. If I don't know why you're angry, then I may just respond to you in anger as well. So I think being able to have compassion and consideration for another person's story, it doesn't absolve them from
yeah,
anything that they may have done wrong, but it can help you better understand where it's coming from, and have a successful outcome, more successful outcome. So I think compassion is, I think the world is missing that.
oh wow, that's pretty powerful. Absolutely awesome. So, how do you help underrepresented voices move from being overlooked to unforgettable?
Oh, I like that. We may have to take that one and use it. Overlooked to unforgettable. That was a good one. Again, we tell their stories authentically. We tell their stories with power. We tell their stories with what I call the gift of interpretation. So the same way that I may say something to a 20-year-old is not the same way I'm going to say it to a 50-year-old, not the same way I'm going to say it to a 70-year-old. So it is
Yeah.
our job to study their audiences, their stakeholders, understand what moves those stakeholders, and then be able to interpret the message in a way that it's received by each stakeholder group, but the context of the message doesn't change. What
Mm,
the emotion we want people to have from hearing that message doesn't change across the different groups. It's just how we get them there that changes. And so
yeah,
because we study what stakeholders motivations are, and we get to know our clients intimately, we're able to tell those stories and make them move from forgotten to unforgettable.
that is so beautiful. So, I'm going to end our interview with two last questions, which are a bit of a thought experiment.
Okay.
In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back to go and have a conversation with the younger you,
Ooh.
the young woman who went into the world of PR and marketing. If you could go back and give yourself three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
The first one would be that God has given you everything you need to be who He has created you to be. However, it will be revealed when you're ready for it. As you mature, those powers will be revealed, those tools will be revealed. So just be patient and let yourself grow. That would be the first one. The second one would be, don't throw away the old you. As you evolve into the woman that you will become, there are going to be facets of yourself that you're still going to need to hold on to. Too often times we think we need to change so much about ourselves. And in all actuality, we need all the pieces of us to be who God created us to be. So that's the second one. The third one I would say is, stop listening to the naysayers. Just because more than one person says something about you doesn't make it true. It just means that they will agree to say the same thing. Um, and when you are anointed, and when you have goals, and when you have dreams, you're going to have those naysayers. Ignore them and keep pushing forward. As long as you can look at yourself in the mirror and honestly say, you've done your best, you were kind, ignore the haters and just keep moving forward.
Absolutely beautiful. Last one, I'll teleport you into the future this time, and we are going to
Okay.
go and meet the 90-year-old you.
Ah,
Is sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her family, her fur babies, whoever's with you at the end. If you could teleport into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
that I got to be 90 years old because I had Jesus and I learned how to mind my own business. That's what I would say to her. And by minding your own business, I mean, one, minding the business that God gave me, and two, staying out of other people's affairs that don't have anything to do with me, that are not my assignment.
I absolutely love it, Tiffany. Thank you so much for coming online and
Thank
sharing
you for
your wisdom.
having me.
Absolutely wonderful to have you as part of our community now. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Tiffany, thanks again for the interview. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.